The United States is on a hunt for more energy.
The U.S. government is predicting record demand for power in 2025 and 2026. This as energy
We think we need to add 100 gigawatts of new firm capacity in the next 5 years.
Okay, that sounds like a lot. But why? What exactly is causing this surge in demand?
We've seen this huge boom in AI, and the idea being that these data centers that actually are used to do all the computations that make AI need a lot of energy.
We've never seen anything like this before in terms of how much energy those centers demand.
Now energy companies are scrambling to satisfy these power-hungry data centers. And they're looking to natural gas as a big part of the equation. Across the Southeast, that means building more pipelines.
A new pipeline is coming to North Carolina. Dominion Energy.
Alabama could soon see a big increase in natural gas production, a multi-billion-dollar.
But are all these pipelines going to come with a price? I'm Charlie Shelton Orman. This is The Broadside, where we tell stories from our home in North Carolina at the crossroads of the South. This week, why America's energy crisis runs through a natural gas pipeline.
Ever wonder what stories hide in the streets of downtown Durham? I'm Anissa Khalifa, host of The Broadside from WUNC. Join me for a special project we're calling Take a Walk on the Broadside. It's a self-guided audio walking tour that blends history, trivia, and fresh perspectives on the Bull City. From October 29th through December 5th, take a stroll, pop in your earbuds, and discover Durham in a whole new way. Find the tour and listen anytime at WUNC.org/walk. Thanks to Discover Durham for making this project possible.
What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? When it comes to protecting what matters, Pacific Life provides life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits for people and businesses building a more confident tomorrow. Strategies rooted in strength and backed by experience. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York. Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
My name is Celeste Gracia. I am the environment reporter at WUNC.
So, as an environment reporter, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear natural gas?
A question mark. A big question mark. It took me reporting this story for me to fully understand the controversy surrounding natural gas, because it really just depends who you ask.
Celeste recently reported on a specific pipeline that's in the works. MVP Southgate. It's set to run through Rockingham County on the North Carolina-Virginia border, and the project has been marred by controversy since it was proposed.
And what piqued my interest, specifically for MVP Southgate, is that state officials are considering a water quality permit, and this permit was previously denied 5 years ago. So whether or not they get this permit will determine whether or not this project moves forward.
And that would be a big deal for Rockingham County. It's become a hotspot for natural gas in North Carolina. MVP Southgate is one of 3 pipelines proposed to run through the county.
A lot of it has to do with the county's geographical location. All of these projects are proposed to go through Rockingham County because of existing infrastructure. There's a lot of infrastructure from previously built pipelines that is already there in the area, so it just makes it that much easier for developers to build upon that.
So there's some controversy around this pipeline running through Rockingham County. And I think in order to understand why, we should talk about natural gas as an energy source. Can you break that down for us?
So natural gas is a fossil fuel, for sure, we know that. Natural gas is mostly made up of methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, and methane is the second largest contributor to climate warming after carbon dioxide. And when there are natural gas pipelines, methane leaks from those pipelines. I also figured out that natural gas has been the largest source of energy production in the United States since 2011, so it's now used more than coal, and coal is slowly retiring.
Okay, so it's pretty popular amongst energy companies. How do they regard natural gas?
Natural gas is essentially marketed as a transition fuel. They argue that natural gas is necessary for the clean energy transition because it provides reliability and affordability. The idea is that natural gas is quote unquote cleaner than coal. And developers also argue that renewable energies like solar and wind can't keep up with the energy demand that we're seeing these days. So natural gas is a product that can bridge that gap.
Okay.
The other side, when we talk to people like environmental advocates or clean energy groups, they say natural gas is a fossil fuel, full stop, nothing else to be heard about it. So they are arguing, why are we continuing to invest in fossil fuels in the midst of this ongoing climate crisis?
So the demand for more power is so big, it means energy companies are looking less at infrastructure that might still have some kinks to work out. Instead, they're going with more tried and true methods, like natural gas pipelines. But Celeste says it's still unclear how MVP Southgate will be used. Some of its natural gas is expected to be for North Carolinians. But there's another big bucket to fill.
There are a lot of concerns about how data centers play a role in this. The energy demand is so much higher now than even just a year ago because of data centers. And so there's this really tricky balance between wanting to provide energy for those centers, but also how do we do it in a fair way for everyday customers?
And how do the folks in Rockingham County feel about this proposed pipeline?
The majority of people don't want this project to happen. The majority of people don't want any of these pipelines to happen.
These rural counties, we don't have a lot going for us other than our rivers and our land and our beauty.
I spoke to Keith Elliott, a recreational assistant with the Dan River Basin Association. Keith is born and raised in Rockingham County, and he told me that he's frustrated that this area continues to be a sacrifice zone.
Becoming the power outlet for the rest of the state, I think we've done a lot already over the years.
That's because about a decade ago, there was this massive environmental disaster right there in the Dan River.
Thank you for bringing that up, because we really cannot talk about these pipelines crossing the Dan River without talking about the Dan River coal ash spill.
Over the weekend at an old power plant, a stormwater pipe that goes under a coal ash pond broke. It sent the equivalent of 30 Olympic-sized swimming pools filled with ash into the Dan River.
This happened in February 2014. There was a Duke Energy coal plant nearby off the Dan River, and a stormwater pipe underneath the coal ash basin broke, sending thousands of tons of coal ash and millions of gallons of coal ash pond water into the Dan River. This spill became the third largest of its kind in U.S. history, and the Dan River is still recovering today from that spill because it was so devastating. So now we're talking about placing 2 more pipelines across the Dan River. Of course, that's going to concern the local people because they've already seen the environmental disasters that can happen when you mess up a river. So this history is weighing heavy on folks in Rockingham County.
Looking at the bigger picture with this proposed pipeline, MVP Southgate, what does this signal for the energy industry in North Carolina?
This signals a significant change in both energy demand and energy generation. North Carolina does have a state law that requires North Carolina to be carbon neutral by 2050, but investing in natural gas, which again is a fossil fuel, seems to be contradictory to that goal. So looking at the big picture, North Carolina has to be carbon neutral by 2050. And even if we do get these pipelines built and in operation within these next few years, it just remains to be seen what will happen to these pipelines then.
MVP Southgate is just one branch of a much larger tree, one that's growing pretty quickly. Natural gas infrastructure is popping up across the country. But do we even know how much is needed? Or are we flying blind, laying down all these pipes? That's coming up after a short break.
Between doom scrolling and the information fire hose, it's easy to feel lost or overwhelmed these days. Masterclass offers something refreshing and completely different, with more than 200 classes taught by the world's best artists and thought leaders. One class I found inspiring recently was from former U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo on poetic thinking, all about opening yourself up to the creative process. And there's so much more. Get to the bottom of our messy socio-political moment with scholars like Noam Chomsky. Add crucial context to the news cycle with historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. Or trace your roots through food with award-winning Southern food writer Michael W. Twitty. With Masterclass, you get thousands of bite-sized lessons that can fit into even the busiest of schedules. And every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/broadside. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/broadside. masterclass.com/broadside.
I went with Yo-Yo Ma to the top of the highest peak in the Smoky Mountains.
The Cherokee people had always thought of that mountain as a spiritual location to open up a porthole into a wider universe.
I'm Ana Gonzalez, and I've been traveling with Yo-Yo Ma around the country and meeting people like Levita Hill, who's on a mission to change this mountain back to its Cherokee name.
Kwohi is the mulberry place.
Listen to Our Common Nature from WNYC wherever you get podcasts.
My name is Ben Lefebvre. I'm the Deputy Energy Editor at POLITICO.
Ben Lefebvre has been covering the energy industry for more than a decade. And over that time, he's seen people pitch a lot of ideas for natural gas.
Yeah, there had been a point in time where the big idea was to get more natural gas into cars. They were trying to sell, they were calling them pop-up gas stations, or, where they would try to sell these ready-made fueling stations where instead of offering gasoline, they would offer compressed natural gas to cars.
Those natural gas guzzlers never really took off. But Ben says back then, the U.S. had more natural gas than it knew what to do with.
It was the big revolution in drilling technology that happened in the mid-aughts, as us old-timers like to say. It has really made natural gas in the U.S. just super cheap, and the supply is really skyrocketed. And, to make money with this stuff, you need to sell it.
One way to sell it? Ship it off to other countries. By the mid-2010s, exports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, started to soar, and more pipelines were getting built to support these offshore shipments. Today, the United States is the largest exporter of LNG. But while this was all happening,
there's this idea that we need to sell more natural gas into any nook and cranny of the continental United States that we can.
And then a few years ago, Ben started to hear about a hot new way to use the fossil fuel.
2 or 3 years ago at these big energy conferences that I was attending in Houston, for the previous years, it had all been about exports. But then you started seeing folks start really talking up the potential for AI to be basically a savior of the energy industry at home as far as demand is concerned.
Your business doesn't just need AI, it needs the right AI for your business.
This is a defining moment. Generative AI has arrived, creating a once-in-a-generation...
That started to come true where you see Meta talking about we need an AI data center the size of Manhattan. Well, the next question is, how are you going to power them?
The answer from energy execs was, how about all that natural gas we've got? And that's where our current pipeline expansion comes into play. Ben says AI has become a new market for gas companies to tap into. But their growing supply of natural gas still might not be enough for these power-hungry data centers.
The appetite's gotten so ravenous that now it's just anything we can use. I've heard from sources saying, if they think they can do it with wood pellets, they'll use wood pellets. But it's become a huge new outlet for domestic natural gas production.
And what are the risks with this approach by going full steam with natural gas and building more pipelines?
The risks are you introduce all these pipelines that will arguably lead to greater climate change because, I mean, natural gas backers will say it's a cleaner form of energy than coal, but that doesn't mean 100% clean by any means. So you could try to build the tightest pipeline you can, but as long as there's natural gas moving around, it's never 100% contained. You're still going to get methane emissions from it. And then the idea is that once you put the pipeline in and it starts working, you've basically baked in that supply for a long time. The industry will say, if we don't get this done quickly, we're going to lose ground on specifically, they'll say, artificial intelligence development. So that's kind of the dual argument of if you don't put it in, you're not going to win the AI race, but you'll be better for the environment overall.
Do we know how much natural gas is going to be needed to supply what's being asked or demanded? Or are we just kind of flying blind at laying all these natural gas pipelines, hoping it's enough for what's eventually needed?
To a certain extent, we're flying blind about how much natural gas, along with everything else, is going to be needed. I mean, we have the head of some companies saying there's not enough turbines that use natural gas to generate electricity. There's not enough of them being built, and the wait list is really long to get one. So wind and solar is just faster and cheaper to get something going. The issue with that, though, is the Trump administration making it very difficult to do that anymore.
We're getting rid of the falsely named renewables. By the way, they're a joke. They don't work.
So then you kind of get into this. If we can't get natural gas infrastructure built as soon as some of these AI data centers want, and if the government is impeding the construction of solar and wind power plants, the demand is going to escalate. The demand was already expected to escalate faster than we could really, supply it with new electricity. But is the administration making it that much more difficult where people are really going to start seeing their electricity prices rise because these data centers are just sucking up all the power?
Many places, though, have already seen bumps in their energy bill. A recent analysis from Bloomberg News found that wholesale electricity costs in areas near data centers have gone up in the last 5 years. In some cases, costs more than doubled.
So how much longer are we looking at these elevated prices?
Definitely for years to come.
So, Ben, if wind and solar infrastructure can't be built in time to meet the demand, where does that leave natural gas as a transition fuel, as a way to eventually, get us to more renewables?
What I'm hearing a lot of from industry lobbyists is that basically they don't even consider natural gas a transition fuel anymore. They're calling it like a destination fuel. What they're trying to push is the idea that you can either use carbon offsets, where basically a company says, well, yeah, natural gas transportation might lead to higher emissions, but we'll just buy a bunch of tree saplings and plant them in the ground and then offsets it, which may or may not actually be effective. Or they'll use carbon capture and storage technology to basically capture methane emissions from these infrastructure projects before they get into the air. So we can get rid of the emissions, or at least get rid of enough of it that you're still going to be carbon neutral at the end of the pipe.
Got it.
That argument, though, interestingly, is falling away, not necessarily because the technology is proven to be bupkis, but because the Trump administration is slashing funding for these projects that the Biden administration had put out.
And so what does that mean for states like North Carolina that have mandates to be carbon neutral by a certain year down the road?
Some states are starting to just basically low-key give up on their carbon neutral promises they made several years ago and just not mentioning it anymore. So that becomes the other potential outcome, is not, do we have to make tougher decisions to hit our carbon neutral promises? The other option is just saying, we're just not going to do it. Like, we're just not going to hit our promise and just don't mention it anymore.
It seems like natural gas has a different place within the energy industry than it did, just a few years ago. Does this pipeline expansion show a distinct shift in the U.S. energy industry?
Yeah, I think it does. I think the second Trump administration in particular has been very bullish on fossil fuels, that it views renewables as not the strength of the United States. Basically, why should we bother competing with other places when oil and gas is so plentiful here? Why don't we just play to our strengths? And so therefore, if we're going to double down on oil and gas, we're going to need more pipelines.
So that means using what we've got. That is, until it runs out.
The flip side of that is the U.S. giving up on the next generation of energy technology.
Oil and gas might be in abundance now, but that doesn't negate the basic conundrum with fossil fuels. There is an expiration date, and building more pipelines could run the risk of speeding up that timeline.
It's still a finite resource, and it's not even necessarily the cheapest resource anymore. So there's also the idea that, if the rest of the world is quicker, like on renewable energy technology, is the U.S., if it does anything with renewable energy, just going to be dependent on those countries more so than it might have been? The worry is that we've gone from being at least in the race to be, a leader in this new generation of technology to just deciding, we're just going to take our oil barrel and go home.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to chat with you.
If you'd like to check out more reporting from Ben Lefebvre and Celeste Gracia, we've dropped some links in the show notes. This episode was produced by me and edited by Jared Walker. The rest of our team includes Anissa Khalifa and Wilson Sayer. The Broadside is a production of WUNC North Carolina Public Radio and is a part of the NPR network. If you have feedback or a story idea, you can email us at broadside@wunc.org. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating, a review, or just share it with a friend. I'm Charlie Shelton Orman. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week.
This October, Fear is free on Pluto TV with horror movie collections from Paranormal Activity, The Ring,
You will die in 7 days,
Scream, and From Dusk Till Dawn.
This is my kind of place.
And don't miss the man-made nightmares in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the world-ending chaos in 28 Days Later.
There's something in the blood.
All the scares, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.